The CEO and co-founder of Bookstr, and we are here today with author Latham Thomas. She is the author of Own Your Glow and of Mama Glow. She is also the founder of the Mama Glow Empire. Latham, thank you so much for being here.
Sarah, thank you so much for having me. And hey guys, how you doing?
You guys, send us your questions and comments for Latham in the comments section, and we will get them to her so that she can give you an answer or a reaction quickly. In the meantime, Latham, I have some questions for you. What is the concept of owning your glow?
So Owning Your Glow was born out of what I saw as a need for women to reclaim their bodies as sacred, to explore self-care as a pathway to empowerment, for us to kind of like cloak ourselves in our superpowers in a way that we're taught not to at an early age. And really to also process this idea of slowing down. I think that so much in our culture, there's like this push to drive, go, hustle, kill it, like this kind of, ethos, right, really like governs and is valued. And I think that there's a lot of processes that are really intricate that involve slowing down and being intentional. And so I really wanted to explore and take women on a journey and really hold their hand in a way as they explore these aspects of themselves and how they could really embody these principles that I share. So a lot of it's about, offering rituals and tools so that we can integrate like piece by piece a lot of what I share, but also figure out how it works for you and how you can expand your glow power as I talk about. And I just see it really as like a way for women to connect deeply with themselves. And what I always say is like, it's a book that helps you return home to yourself. Mm-hmm. So it's just really about us, finding this sanctity in ourselves. And everything in our culture turns us away from our bodies, turns us away from like checking in and tuning inward. And this is a book is just really a reminder, I feel like.
I love that so much. I think this is one of the first books I've ever read that is very focused on turning inwards and not outwards. And I'm so excited. Like that makes me so happy that that's out in the world because it's so needed right now, especially you. And we're kind of like skip to this, but you had said that this is like the antithesis of the hustle and grind book that's so prevalent right now. And I know especially I'm getting a lot of that stuff coming my way, and I'm just like, there's like that saying that's like there is no finish line, and like there's all this stuff out there that's puts so much pressure on your time and your day to day.
Yes.
And I found this to be a helpful reminder. Like checking in is really important.
Yes.
How did you come up with this concept, and like where did you find this in yourself, and kind of what was your journey leading up into these books?
Yeah, I mean, I think that even the process of writing the book, which I think so many people get so excited about the idea of writing a book and how long does it take you, and I don't think I could ever do it. And really, it's like with anything, it's like you sit down, you create the space to do it, and then it gets done. For me, the first book that I wrote, Mama Glow, I wrote in like 3 months. And then the second book, this one, it took me years, but it took years because I only sat down to write when I felt inspired. And I really was committed to like allowing the words to come through me and when I had something to say. But I also stand by the fact that I had this life journey, and there was a bunch of things that needed to happen that also that showed up in the book later, but they had to occur. Yeah. And so I really took my time with it. It's not to be done. Like you have to talk to your editor and make sure that you don't just do that and just like dip away and be like, I'm not going to write for a year. But I did take a lot of time to write it. But one of the things that was really kind of coming up a lot in the beehive, or I should say was buzzing a lot, was this idea of, the hustle, right? And everyone's really proud of hustling. I'm like anti-hustle. I don't value like working to the extent that you are that it's to the detriment of your health. Because you can't be of service in a really powerful way. And also like what's the standard like that you're like shooting towards? If it's so like beyond you that you have to like escape where you are in this moment to get there. I believe that really, like if we take our time and we're intentional about things, and we can also course correct on the way. So sometimes people build something so quickly that they haven't even given it time to breathe, and then once it's out, they have to make all these corrections, when if you're really focused on putting the best thing out the first time and also taking your time as you do it, then there's less, there's less mistakes. And in my work, obviously, working with expected new moms, it's like, baby takes like 40 weeks, sometimes up to 42 to get here. And you're not like rushing the baby out. Like there's things that are happening that are like delicate processes, right?
Yeah.
And we have to let them have their space. And so I think with the hustle, I rather people, instead of saying, oh, you're hustling, you're killing it, rather than say I'm nurturing it, because that's really what I'm doing, is taking my time, weeding the garden, watering, letting sunlight come, and letting something grow. And that's really how we get to, these stages of, right?
That's such a better way to do it.
It feels better too,
so
like
much better.
weeding your garden and letting stuff grow.
Yeah.
But I think that's really what I'm doing. Every day I'm showing up, and then I'm, bringing my energy to that place. And we know that where we focus our energy, fruit will be born. So it's really about focus. And I think that's the hardest thing for entrepreneurs and people in these spaces that are like building things. It's like, oh, but I have this another huge idea, which is great. Yeah. And, a shortage of ideas is like terrible. So having tons of ideas is amazing. But you also have to figure out, like, where do I want to focus my energy? Yeah. Not like find a way to hustle so that you're doing tons of things but actually getting nothing done. I think that, one of the really important principles to remember is, movement doesn't mean process or progress. Like movement doesn't mean progress. So just because you're moving and spinning your wheels doesn't mean you're going anywhere. Yeah. So I think we have to remind ourselves that whatever we're doing should be done with all of our attention and focus, so that like there's fruit that comes from it.
Totally. I think that's so brilliant, so smart, and like straight on. It's great.
We're all working on it.
Yeah, always, for sure. Okay. So I have like some questions, and we have some questions coming in, so we'll get to those shortly.
Amazing.
But one thing I have, a big question for you is, you talk about trusting your creative impulse in the book. Mm-hmm. When did you do that? And what does it mean to trust your creative impulse? Because it's a scary thing, right? Because you're like, if you're being drawn towards something or drawn away from something, it's scary. And you use a case study in the book that's like a woman, actually the intro of the book is like the woman who's like killing it, overworked, all these things, but she's like not, she's taken the job. Yeah, she's not fulfilled, and she's not chasing any kind of creative impulse. What do you, like, where did you come up with this concept, and why did you include it in the book?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that creative force, finds us and chases us, really, and keep knocking at your door kind of thing, or like tapping on your shoulder, and you're like, what is it, right? I believe that's your intuition, that's your GPS, right? It's like kind of helping you govern where to go next, and it will like throw something in your pathway until you pay attention. And for me, I think it's like one of the things that we least trust, right, is this aspect of ourselves that's like showing us the way, because we think that there's this other way that we've already mapped out and it's perfect. And if I just follow these steps or read these books or do these programs or listen to this therapist, like I'm going to find my way, right? But meanwhile, there's a voice inside that just knows. And there's like an internal conversation and dialogue that you have to get familiar with, and it's your own, right? Yeah. And so instead of like shoving it down and trying to subliminate this dialogue, rather like be in relationship with it, like explore what this is that keeps coming up. Why do I keep seeing these signs? How come I keep finding my way back to this, or whatever these things are? Like use it as information and tools along the journey, like little talisman, or what do they call them, Easter eggs, like along the way, right? Yeah. Like use it as hints to help you figure out where you're going next, and instead of sort of shutting it out the door and thinking like, oh, this doesn't really help me, or this isn't useful because it's not aligned with the path I'm on. A lot of the times there's things that come up because we need to pivot, right? Yeah. And so, and we might be standing in the way of our own progress by not exploring these things that come up for ourselves. So I think that, yes, there's fear involved because there's uncertainty, but if you can get comfortable in exploring the uncertainty, which I definitely think is something that like a generation of people who are more entrepreneurial, we see more entrepreneurs more than we ever have in previous generations, are so much more risk-friendly. Yeah. I feel like these concepts really can translate not just in your personal life, but also in your professional life to help you be more risk-friendly and and voice, and when something comes to the surface, figure out how you can translate it into action is really important. So I just felt it was a necessary thing to acknowledge, because it's what drives us, really. Instead of just like our thinking brain, it's also this primal source of energy, but also a direct, thing that shows up in our lives that we should really pay attention to.
Very cool. We have a ton of questions coming in, so I'll jump to those, and then if we have time, I'll go back to some of mine. But Chris says, what's the first thing someone should do to slow everything down a little bit and avoid the hustle?
So, hi Chris, by the way. One of the things that I like to do first is, and I know this is like not, we shouldn't be saying this here because we have you on social media, but one of the things I think that's really powerful is phone fasting, and just turning off electronic devices. Don't do it now if you're listening to us. But in general, like maybe there's one day a week that you can just shut off all of that, so that you can really focus on what's happening like in your mind and around you in your personal life. That's a really powerful way to shut off, the chatter, that contributes to mental chatter that's distracting. But also sometimes I think when you have so much going on socially and you're tuned into what everyone else is doing and you're doing this, you start to feel like you're not doing enough and like you're not working hard enough. And it just throws you into this like rabbit hole, I feel like, of expectation and a dialogue that's like not supportive of like all the things you're actually doing. I feel like we're doing too much, in fact. And so that's one of the things I like people to do. And then I think establishing a really strong self-care practice. I talk about so many things in the book that you can do to sort of tune inward, to slow down, to create space for yourself. One of like my favorite things in the earlier part of the book, the first half of the book, is about prioritizing play. And I think play is an important pathway for pleasure, for self-discovery, and really for like, to thrive. We have to have pleasure in our lives. And so what does that look like for you? Like, where are you not playing? Like, what in your life isn't playful enough? Like, where can you insert more of that? And so I think that helps us to stay like super out of crazy hustle mode. And if you're like really in an intense part of like work, if something's happening where it's like super intense, you got to go, like make sure you punctuate the day with some play. So maybe you can like do ping pong, or like take a walk around the block, or ride your bike to work, or anything that feels for you like it gives you some reprieve and you can exhale is really important, so that you can take some just breathers. Like, I'm not even asking people to like completely check out and go live on an island somewhere. You know what I mean? I just mean like, just find time. Like maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's like half the day, maybe it's like only on the weekends, maybe it's like when you put your kids to bed, but figure out what that is for you and just be consistent with it, so that it doesn't become this punitive thing like, oh, if I get this done, I'll do this. No, like get this self-care in so you can do that other thing. Like give yourself the time to like daydream or doodle or whatever, so that you can come back like refreshed. Because for us, when we give ourselves this time, it's like kind of hitting like Control Alt Delete and like rebooting yourself, so that you can show up fresh to whatever it is that you're doing. So even if that is like doodling or going outside for a walk or sitting under a tree or doing your yoga, do it.
I love that so much.
Right?
It's like so timely for me. I'm like, I need some of that right now.
Because she's reading too many books.
Yeah. Mo says, I am anti-hustle. She loves that you said
Yes, Mo.
Ifra says, hi, I'm from Pakistan. I'm so happy to see such important books coming out and being recognized. Oh. Very cool. We're sending you love over there in Pakistan. Spencer says, what does a normal day look like for you?
Ooh, a normal day. Well, the days are so different because I'm a person who likes variety, but I do have some constant things that come up. So daily, I make sure to do something administrative just so I know what's happening in our world, the world of Mama Glow and in the larger world. I spend time one-on-one like this with a lot of the women that I work with, which is amazing. I get to work with women. I just delivered a baby last weekend, the third of this particular family that I delivered with. So I get to do these kind of check-ins at home and be with babies and hold little babies, which is so awesome.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Oh my God, it's so fun.
Yeah.
It's just like,
It's
that's
gotta be
what
good
keeps
for
me,
the
yeah,
soul.
yeah. I mean, you're holding somebody, you're like, oh my God, I can count the days that you're alive.
It's
It's
so
awesome.
wild.
Yeah, it's really wild. So I have things like that. I do some writing. We book a lot of things, so there's scheduling stuff, so I get briefed on those types of things that are happening. I get to interface with younger people a lot. I think it's a big commitment of mine and something that I think that everyone should do. Like, we should connect with different generations so that we stay sharp and like we have different perspectives. So I like to meet with young people and, you know, in a mentorship capacity, but also to like, you know, get briefed on ideas and learn what's happening. They keep me hip on technology so I don't sound like I'm old and, you know, out of date with things. And also, like, I spend time with my son. I have a 14-year-old son. And I should say I spend time with him. He does not spend time with me. Let's be clear. At 14, like, they're not hanging out with us. We were hanging out with them. And so I spend time with him. We do homework and things like that. I cook every day. But there's no, like, normal thing. It's more like, I think, again, in entrepreneurial life, I definitely set boundaries around like when I end my day, but there's a lot of things that come up, like, you know, I have to show up to this, or there's a client thing, or someone has an issue. It's like you got to kind of throw on your cape and just put your attention where it's needed. Yeah. So I often find that, like, even if the day's planned a certain way, stuff comes up and you just kind of figure it out as you go. And I've become less attached to like the day didn't go the way I planned, and more like, let me just respond to like what's needed. Exactly. And just like, what's the best decision to make in the situation for everyone involved? Let me like show up in that way. Yeah. So now I'm just more like, let me just show up. But that's also because of, you know, when you go to a birth and you're, you know, witnessing a baby be born, it's not going your way. It's going like the way that it's, you know, like God and the baby and the mom. So I'm just there to kind of help navigate and help her in the process. So I kind of approach life like that too. Like my days, like, oh, it's headed this direction. I guess that's where we're going, you know, instead of resisting. So I've learned that, but I learned that from the birth room.
I bet you have some really incredible birth stories.
Oh my God. We've had some babies in taxis and almost born in cabs. Yes.
No.
I know. It's like a movie. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Francesca says, people always say a good day starts with a positive mindset.
Yes.
Does your book have any mantras or tips on how to start the day on the right foot?
Oh my God, it's full of tons. Oh my God, I love that you asked that. There's tons of tips. There's tons of mantras. I even break down what a mantra is. I talk about affirmation. There's wonderful ways to start the day, but every section is full of rituals too. So you can figure out like what works for you and you know, integrate what makes most sense and what feels really resonant, and then you can leave the rest. And that's what I love about it. It's not really about like, okay, I have to conform to all these things and like, you know, join a cult, or it's nothing like this. It's like, what feels good for your life? Like, what are you going to be, you know, continuing and practicing on a regular basis? It's going to make you feel you're most fortified. That's what you should be doing, you know? Yeah. So yes, there's tons of rituals. There's one like morning meditation that I love that you could practice. I think it's like in the middle of the book. And there's also, you know, some really good rituals for like rest, dreaming, you know, like everything. There's just like so much good stuff in there.
There's a lot. And
there is
all
a lot.
Really good. It's very brilliant. Like I was reading it, and the next thing I knew, I was like Googling new bed sheets for me. And like I was like, okay, I need all kinds of things.
That's one of the things, right? We talk about starting making your bed. So like messy bed, messy head. So you want to make your bed every day, but also what are you sleeping on? Like there's a whole thing on
how does your room feel? What are the colors that you're using?
Exactly. So there's a lot on that. I think you will love it.
Yes. George says, what are other strategies that you use to stay fully focused on your work?
That's great. Let me just start off by saying, George, hello, how are you? That I'm like the queen of finding ways to not be focused on work, right? Like I am the queen of like, oh, let me like wash those dishes, or like, is there like something that needs to be polished? Like I always find a way to step out of, you know, what I'm supposed to be doing. And what I've learned over the years, though, is that, what seems like procrastination is not always procrastination. Sometimes it's just like not time, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've learned, like with my own patterns, is I'm avoiding doing this thing for what reason? Am I avoiding, or does this need to be done later? Or is it not time for this? Or have I moved beyond this?
Yeah.
Or does this need to be delegated?
Yeah.
And so what I would say is make sure that what's actually on your plate needs to be on your plate. And it's something that you actually need to get done yourself. And if that's the case, then look at like what it is that you have to do and what are the times of the day that are best for you to be doing that activity. So if you're like really great at like busting out all your emails at the end of the day, then don't put them at the beginning of your day so that you have to like be in that headspace. Maybe like you're really great at meetings at the top of the morning, book all your meetings in the morning. Maybe you prefer not leaving your house, do them as phone meetings. Like, figure out how to be efficient with your time, because I think the economy of time is so important. It's like one of the resources we have precious little of, and we don't get it back. And so how can you spend it best? But rather than spend, how can you invest it, right? So that it keeps giving you back. So I feel like, really understanding like what I have to do and how I can best get it done is the only way. If I'm doing things that I know I don't like to do, and then I'm doing them at a time of the day where I'm not going to be focused, that it's just like, I'm not going to feel good at the end of the day. Totally. So I really try to plan like, okay, this is a like cognitive intensive thing that I have to pour my energy into. Let me schedule this in this chunk of time, right? So I talk about that in the book too, like how we can best utilize like what's happening around us. I talk about moon cycles and things of this nature too, in how we can tackle the stuff that we have to get done in the world. So there's definitely like, I would say like a philosophical and spiritual like lens, but also approaching the practicality of like a daily life that we all live like in this modern society. And not necessarily like in a cave and meditating all day, right? Yeah. Because it'd be amazing to do that, but like we're not. We're here.
Yeah. We have to be here. Interacting.
Yeah.
Okay. Denitra says, I love the Easter egg analogy. Is there a certain basket that we should store those eggs in?
Denitra.
Yeah.
I love that.
Such as fear, destiny, go, stop. And how did you get to that space of emotional intelligence?
I can't wait for you to read this book.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that the basket is the heart, right? And I think that, what you want to store everything along your journey in a place where it's safe kept or kept safe. And so maybe think about like as stuff shows up for you, journal, right, is really important. Have what I call like a sister circle, and it doesn't have to just be ladies in your sister circle. You could have, a friendship circle of people who you can, touch base with, who are going to support you as you're on your journey and as things are like opening up for you and expanding, that got your back, I also think that it's important to have, some self-reflective practice, whether that's like a meditation or prayer or yoga or whatever it is that kind of gets you out of your head and gives you like this larger perspective and helps you to tune into like where you fit into like the larger ethos and landscape of like humanity or just like the universe. So for some people it's science too. I know for me, like I love reading about science because it just reminds you how small you are, like how we're like a blip in time, and that also gives some solace, and, other times I want to, read something that reminds me of how like big we are and how powerful. So I think like finding something that really like grounds you in like who you are and what your purpose is really great. There's some activities, I should say practices in the book and journaling or writing exercises that you can do to tune into what's coming through you, because sometimes we're blocking those things because there's so much distraction and noise around ourselves. So what I would suggest is like as you're like on this path of alignment to write, because I think what was helpful for me was writing things down and then like years later like opening up these journals and looking to see like things that I wrote about like that I'm living, or things that I wrote about that I can't even believe that that was where I was in my consciousness, you know? I think it's really good to have that kind of perspective. And I would say that it's always like a journey, you know, like I don't feel like I'm someplace. I'm just like, I'm still like, I'm a student, like we're all in a journey.
Yeah.
But it's really like iron sharpens iron, right? So you just want to be around people who uplift, respect, and have high regard for you, who want to see you fly, who want to see you soar, but who aren't trying to clip your wings. And you also want to be around, you know, surrounded by like amazing books, you know, that help to uplift you and keep you inspired and on your journey, wherever that is. And you want to be in conversation and dialogue with people who are, you know, helping to change the world and learn something. You know, I think the issue is like a lot of times we get to this place where like, I have to be the expert, I have to know it all. And then when you get to that place, you're like done growing, unfortunately. So I think it's really about like a constant reverence for growth and for becoming, not like arriving someplace, but constantly becoming really is I think our focus.
That's great. Okay, so we have 2 more questions, and then we're going to have to wrap, unfortunately. But Jeff says, when it comes to risk, how can you figure out what risks you should take versus ones that forces you into an unhealthy hustle?
Oh my gosh, Jeff, that's such a great question. Again, I think that, you know, risk friendliness is super, you know, subjective. It depends on who it is. It depends on what's at risk, right? And it also depends like what your where your threshold lies for what it is that you desire and where you're headed and what it is that is at stake, right? So it's not really going to be like a little sheet of paper with like pros on one side and cons on the other, so much as it's going to be like an internal feeling of like either complete angst about like you can't get this thing out of your head. It's something that it's like you have dreams about it. Even when you feel fearful, moving in that direction, right? Because I believe that the universe rewards courage. So you want to go the direction of that. But then I think there's, and like you said, the unhealthy side, I think as we go too far with things, you have to have that little practice that we talked about earlier, right? That self-care, where you can say, okay, I'm going to be putting so much on the line. There's so much stress involved, like, you know, and you get to a place where you can, you know, turn away and shut off everything and be clear in your mind and focus and rest and then come back and make a decision after having rested, having eaten well, having had great conversation, having, you know, maybe meditated, whatever it is that you need to do for process so you have clarity, I think is when you should make decisions. I don't ever recommend making a decision in a place of stress or anxiety or under threat. Like, you know, if I don't do this, like, you know, or what's, you know, like looking at 2 things and kind of being like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I don't know. Like, if you don't know the answer, you need to sit with whatever it is that you're holding on to until it emerges. Because if you make a decision where it's not, where the feelings are not a part of that, then somehow the feelings are cut off from what it is that, you know, is sitting before you, then you want to have visceral connection to whatever it is that you're making, you're taking a risk on, right? If you think about everybody who, and I don't want to encourage gambling or anything, but when you think about this as a practice or as a, you know, even as a habit, people who gamble, like there's emotion involved in taking risk, right? So when we take risks, there's always emotions at stake. There's always emotion involved. And if you feel fearful, but you know that on the other side of it, there's a reward and that you can do something really powerful by making this decision, I think you go in that direction, but you find the right support, have advisors, have friends that you can talk to, and also have like a nice hot bath, like so you can soak out like all that anxiety, because it's really important, I think, as you're moving in the direction of your dreams or your path of success, that you take time to really look at what's around you and how far you've come. And also be willing to say no to something that isn't completely aligned with where you want to go. And I think that's the other piece, is that it's like, oh, well, what if this doesn't happen again? I think that if you're if you're paving the road with good intention and you're bringing something to the world that's really important, that whatever it is that comes up now, if it's not right, something even better will come. So I think you have to have that confidence too and faith that like where you're headed is, like nobody can stop you either way.
So good and so profound. Like I'm a huge fan.
Oh my God, I adore you.
God, so good. Okay, George says, who are your inspirations in life?
Ooh, thank you, George, for this question. My inspirations, one is Mom. I mean, how can you be on here and not talk about Mom? My mom is amazing. She's like an alchemist. She was a single mom, had two girls, me and my sister. We both went to boarding school, both went to Columbia University. She was just amazing. She just really forced us, and the kind of pressure she put on us, I think, to succeed, I internalized to a place where it became my own, instead of just my mom wanting to please my mother, I wanted to succeed for myself. So I thank her for that and for that imprint. But also she taught me a lot about self-care and how she would get massages every Wednesday. And we learned a lot about watching her take care of herself and how to take care of ourselves. My grandmother, who recently passed, was definitely a huge inspiration and somebody who I think was like a gentle force who taught me a lot and still I feel like guides me and was definitely hovering over me my entire book tour. She actually passed the day that my book tour started.
No.
Yes. It was really intense, but I just feel like she's always with me, which is amazing. And she had the first print of the book, and which was awesome.
Yeah.
Like she was able to read some of it before she passed, which I was so grateful.
Oh, I'm sure she was so proud.
Oh, she was really proud, but it was like, for me, it was such a thing to be able to share with her, you know?
That's so neat.
So I just feel like I've come from this incredible, matrilineage that's so powerful. And but then I would also say, I'm really inspired by the next generation of leaders, like the kids of today. We witnessed something like really horrific happen last week in Florida, and what emerged, it's like from the ashes, these amazing youth who are using the power of their voices and who are not standing down as a result of or who are not stifled in their grief, but have become actually inspired and have been able to, I think, lead a charge in a way that we haven't seen before. And there's space for them to do this, and they're supported, and we see you. So I'm so inspired by that. I think that we need to see leaders in everyday people, and not just people on platforms or with platforms, but, people everywhere we look. We should see leadership. And so that's what I'm inspired by as well.
Awesome. I love it, Latham. You are fantastic. You guys, the book, you can purchase it. There's a link in the comments. And Latham, where can they follow you, find you? What's your website address and all of your social handles? Where can
all of the stuff.
Where can we tell them to go?
So you can go to @GlowMaven on Instagram. It's just GLOWMAVEN. I'm also there on Twitter. And the book website's ownyourglowthebook.com, but you can go to mamaglow.com and find me there as well. And I'm happy I love having conversations with people. I love seeing what they've been reading about. So share with me. I'll share below as well.
Perfect.
And thank you for having me. I'm so glad to meet you guys. Amazing questions, by the way.
Great. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.